Hey, I'm Cliffhanger, and this is the movie Anora. A young stripper meets the son of Russian oligarchs at work. Their short acquaintance gradually develops into a desire to marry, despite her extremely easygoing behavior.
So we're getting a divorce.
Of course! Are you stupid?
The movie's action begins in the back rooms of the Final Rip Club, headquarters where works as a staff dancer, the descendant of Russian immigrants, Anora Mikheeva, who prefers to be called simply Annie. She frowns, realizing that among the visitors, there won't be Brad Pitt with a can of dog food, and in between she gossips with colleagues about solvent gentlemen, for whose pleasure she writhes during private dances. One evening, a wealthy visitor stumbles into the club, desperately in need of a girl. Considering Annie's Russian background, it's her who gets sent to this client, who turns out to be Vanya Zakharov. The dancer admits to the guy that her grandmother, a migrant, taught her Russian before they retire to a private room after her dance. Vanya asks if he can book her, and she gives him her phone number. Early in the morning, Annie rides the subway to Brighton Beach, where it rains constantly, and next door lives Nika Bielik. Annie lives with her sister, but soon she goes to visit yesterday's admirer, Vanya, who lives in a luxurious mansion by the bay. Without much thought, the couple begins exactly what the meeting was meant for: an awkward intimacy. After sex, the guest wonders how Vanya could afford such a mansion, but Vanya dodges the topic and admits that his father is Russian oligarch Nikolai Zakharov. Later that evening, Annie boasts to her friends that she danced privately for a wealthy client. She is overheard by a jealous rival nicknamed Diamond. Annie visits Vanya again, who balances out the universe by losing badly in a Fortnite match after sleeping with her. He then invites the girl with low social responsibility to a New Year's party. At the appointed time, the strippers arrive at the mansion, amazed by the luxury and scale of the Russian heir's revelry. Pouring down alcohol, they ignore Armenians Toros and Garnik, assigned to watch over Vanya. After midnight strikes, the guests head to the mansion's roof to salute the new year with fireworks. After celebrating with a holiday surcharge of $500, Annie gets ready to go home. When Vanya wakes up, he makes her an offer she can't refuse. He wants to buy a week of her time for $15,000 so she can play the role of his girlfriend. Annie takes unpaid leave from the strip club and moves in with Vanya. While having fun, the thought arises that the best parties are in Las Vegas. Without much hesitation, Vanya suggests flying to the city of Sin on a private jet. Upon arrival, they check into a luxury suite, trolling the staff for not evicting previous guests in time, not knowing that VIP clients would arrive as suddenly as diarrhea, and with the same level of pleasantness. Then begins unrestrained partying with friends, funded by parental money. Vanya diligently pays for elite alcohol, clubbing, pool splashing, massages, and other luxury pleasures. In the frenzy of endless fun, the guy suddenly confesses love to Annie and proposes marriage. Even more so, marriage with a third-generation American would give him citizenship, which would allow him to avoid deportation back to his historical homeland. Having celebrated happily through the streets of the city of Sin, the newlyweds return to New York. There, Annie announces the fresh news to her former colleagues and leaves the dance business altogether, illustrating the sacred phrase, "Goodbye, losers, I always hated you." Even the malicious rival Diamond cannot ruin her mood, while Annie enjoys the delights of being the wife of a Russian oligarch's son. Vanya's parents belatedly learn of the accomplished fact of their son's marriage. Toros, who was supposed to watch over the spoiled rich kid, was distracted by his family matters. To check the degree of truth in the rumors, Toros sends to Vanya's mansion two loyal subordinates, fellow countrymen Garnik and Igor, who became the best guy in the world after traveling in compartment number 6. In the mansion, Vanya indulges in hedonism and saberitism, gaming on Xbox in the arms of a concubine rented on a permanent basis. Suddenly, the doorbell rings. It's Garnik and Igor, the guards who came to check the young man's social status. While Garnik inspects the marriage certificate in the other room, Igor watches Annie. Convinced that the marriage is real, Garnik reports to Toros, who in turn calls Vanya's parents, ordering his subordinates to stay put until further instructions. Despite the young couple's desire to get rid of the guests, Toros calls Russia with the unpleasant news. The oligarch parents decide to urgently fly to the US to personally deal with the situation of their wayward son. Meanwhile, Toros tells his subordinates that they must control the newlyweds until he negotiates the annulment of the marriage. Annie is sharply against such a turn of events. She didn't marry an oligarch to be used and discarded. The furious Annie resists, actively trying to break free, forcing them to tie her hands to minimize damage. Toros, on speakerphone, listens as the raging girl kicks Garnick in the face. Arriving at the scene, the boss sees the mess and tries to resolve everything. He promises the dancer $10,000 in exchange for a divorce, but Annie refuses. To keep her quiet, the men gag her with a scarf, taking off her wedding ring in the process. Vanya's parents will arrive in the morning, and until then, they must find the irresponsible rich kid in the city, having no idea where he might have run off to. Toros persuades Annie to help, hinting that the marriage will be annulled anyway, so she may as well gain something from this. Then the whole team sets off to look for Vanya around the city. First, they stop by Igor's home, where he brings pills for Garnick, who suffered a concussion from Annie's kick. Then they visit Vanya's friends at a shop. The friends act tough toward the strangers Annie brought, but Igor's authority and quick reflexes allow him to disarm the local troublemakers. With a theoretical lead, the group walks along the classic waterfront to a Russian restaurant, where one more of Vanya's friends hangs out. However, he hasn't seen him either. Toros shows photos of the youth, but no one has seen him in a long time. It's already getting dark when they leave the place and continue searching. Coming out of the bar, Toros is forced to hijack his own car from a tow truck driver, like a side mission from GTA. The group rides around the city visiting places where the runaway might be. First, they check a billiard hall, where Vanya is known but hasn't been seen lately. On the way back, Garnick starts vomiting. While Toros cleans the car seat at the nearest gas station, the subordinate breathes fresh air, while Igor smokes carelessly, ignoring that it's forbidden. They continue roaming the city, but Vanya always stays a step ahead, leaving bars just before their arrival. Then the gang enters a cheap cafe when suddenly a call comes from Lulu, Annie's friend, saying the newlywed husband is indulging in vice and debauchery back at the strip club headquarters. Back at the strip club headquarters, Vanya is recognized by the jealous rival Diamond, who tries to seduce the rich Russian nerd. His legal wife, accompanied by her escorts, arrives at the club and tries to reach the drunken Vanya, directly telling him that they are being forced to divorce. But the young man doesn't react, lost in his drunkenness. In the process, Diamond provokes Annie, which escalates into a large-scale brawl between all the dancers. When everyone gathers in the car, Annie argues that her husband is mentally unfit to sign any documents. But the Armenians are not swayed and drive to the courthouse, where they spend the rest of the night waiting for the workday to begin. In the morning, they are met by the personal lawyer of the Zakharov family. Annie delivers a heartfelt speech before the judge, begging not to dissolve their marriage, while her hungover husband stands by uselessly. But all efforts are in vain. By law, the marriage can only be annulled in the state of Nevada. Realizing the problem isn't solved, the gang heads to the airfield, where the Zakharovs' private jet is expected to land. Annie tries to convince her husband that they can explain everything to his parents. Soon, Galina Stepanovna and Nikolai Zakharov arrive, burdened with their own problems. Not long ago, some pensioner had stolen and burned the community fund entrusted to them. The mother immediately orders the plane to be refueled so they can fly to Vegas, where the marriage with the local prostitute can be annulled. Annie tries to persuade Vanya not to give in to manipulation, but from the conversation, it becomes clear that he isn't ready to exchange a billion-dollar inheritance for questionable happiness in the arms of a stripper. She threatens to sue for half his property, to which Galina Stepanovna replies that the legal costs alone would bankrupt her. Understanding she has no way out, Annie boards the plane with the rest of the group. Sitting down, she vows her love to her husband, who stubbornly avoids her eyes, bickering with his mother instead. The mother scolds her son for reckless decisions, while the spoiled brat ignores her, throwing obscenities. Hearing his excuses, Annie says she is glad about the upcoming divorce, because in terms of character, he's no man at all, unable even to defend his own opinion. Igor, watching what's happening, pours Annie a drink to calm her nerves. Arriving in Vegas, the group heads to a lawyer's office, where the divorce is officially processed. Galina Stepanovna actively comments on everything, while her son shamefully hides his gaze, not wanting to look his ex-wife in the eyes. When Annie leaves, Igor suddenly suggests that Vanya apologize to her, But his mother objects, claiming there's nothing to apologize for. Annie then calls her ex-husband a pathetic loser and throws in his mother's face that her son hated her so much that he even married out of spite. This performance causes Zakharov Sr. to burst into Homeric laughter. In the Zakharovs' mansion, where the girl must move out, she passes the time watching movies. They chat about all sorts of things. The guy admits that yesterday was his birthday, but he didn't tell anyone, being too busy with work. In the morning, when snow suddenly begins to fall over the city, Igor goes to the bank, withdraws money, and gives Annie compensation. Then he drives her home to her sister's place, the one she had recently left with such pomp. As a farewell, he returns her the wedding ring that had earlier been taken off her finger, but asks her not to tell anyone about it. Deeply touched, Annie decides to get intimate with him. However, when Igor, in a rush of feelings, tries to kiss her, Anora turns away and, realizing her own emotional poverty, bursts into tears right in his arms. And on this note, the film ends. If you want to see more videos like this, leave a like and subscribe. That helps my channel a lot. See you.